All
All right.
right, Aussie. Broken Crown to kick things off with. VortiX versus Elazer, Infernal Mirrors here. To start off, I think one of the more interesting talking points for us here is going to be early game. We've had some behind the scenes discussions between the casting crew for today. And one of the more intriguing details about these two is that VortiX has his best performance in the first 5 minutes of the game. Elazer has his worst performance in the first 5 minutes of the game. So those first few minutes, they are going to be crucial for both of these players in this set.
Yeah, agreed 100%. We've seen some pretty wacky strategies out of VortiX before, so I'm curious to see what he brings here because obviously this is going to be the ultimate test, almost the ultimate test, depending on how he does today. But it's time for us to jump in, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to game number 1 of your very first semi-finals here for EGCTV's Stormgate Open, spawning in the north side of the map in the color red, playing as the Infernals. We've got Elazer.
And on the other side, it is going to be VortiX coming out of AoE4, having a great performance in the first Zero Space tournament as well. Now he's here in the top 4 of the EGC Stormgate Open. And right off the get-go, an Iron Vault opening right next to that speed camp Aussie for at least Elazer. On the other side, that's going to be an Iron Vault closer to this tree line on the left side for VortiX.
Yeah, so a little bit more defensive for VortiX, a little bit more aggressive for Elazer. Obviously going to have the reinforcements. A slight advantage there. Conclave now going to be coming up for Elazer as well. As we would expect, both of them going to be looking to take these speed camps early, look to start stacking up that infest on each of the goats, and then looking to try and snowball that further across the map. So the question will be, what do we see as the follow-up? Because I suspect it's probably going to be pretty mirrored when it comes to this early first minute or two.
Yeah, now one thing to touch on here is that we had a bit of a patch just before the playoffs of this event started. And one of the key changes when it comes to these creep camps was the reduction in the amount of guardians it has. And this has an impact on the Infernals here. You're going to get way less fiends than what you used to get from these camps before the patch hit.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So it used to be 5, now it's down to 3. So it means that overall there's slightly less fiends for you to take, and then subsequently snowball those fiends again. And now, speaking of snowball, immediately VortiX looks to begin making his way towards the Vision camp across on his opponent's side. I think the question from here is, where do they go from this position? Because there's a number of ways that it can be played. You can look to try and stick it out on one base and go a little bit all in, maybe bring up an imp to see whether you can get a Shroud Stone down, or you can just simply fall back, play it safe, and look to expand by taking your natural.
Yeah, looks like it's going to be an aggressive opening here from VortiX, hitting those imps. Fell Hogs running around as well, of course. You gotta be cautious with those Fell Hogs if you are Elazer. You start losing them and you start spawning fiends for your opponent.
Yeah, but speaking of Laser, have a look at that. The Shroud Stone does come up. It was beautifully timed by Elazer. He knew exactly what the play VortiX was going to be looking to make was, and subsequently only loses. I think it was 1. Did I see 1 imp go down? Maybe 2?
Yeah, but it's still something in a mirror matchup, Aussie, and this is a great start for VortiX. We talked about this in the pregame. His best moments in a game, historically, is the first 5 minutes, and that's the weakest period for Elazer. So being able to pick off a couple of imps to start the game with, definitely beneficial here for VortiX.
The question's going to be about what VortiX does on the defense here, because Elazer's numbers are looking pretty decent, but keep in mind VortiX has got that defensive advantage. The reinforcement's going to come in a little bit thicker, and as a result, the Gaunt's now getting some great shots in on the back and getting plenty of fiends now through. It looks like the defense for VortiX will be pretty successful here. Keep in mind he does have that expansion coming up behind this as well, which naturally means he's going to be in a great little spot here as we enter into the 3rd minute.
Yeah, one of the key pieces of micro here for VortiX was splitting those brutes just when they became low HP. In the previous patch, they automatically split into fiends and you didn't get any benefit from manually splitting them, but now you do. When you split the brutes manually, you get those fiends spawning with full white health, and that was a big difference maker for VortiX in this fight.
One of the other big differences as well with going for the manual split means that your opponent doesn't actually get the extra fiend from Infest. But speaking of extra fiends from Infest, have a look at this. As now Elazer coming out with the Gaunt numbers, really starting to swing this this momentum back and forth across the map. It's lovely to see the way that it happens, where you've got this defender's advantage that really starts to build up, and as the player pushes further away from their base, they suddenly get repelled by a larger force.
Elazer could be on the attack over here. Both players on 2 bases for the time being, but this is going to be a big one here. Health camp will be claimed, and given that some of these troops are fairly heavily damaged, that's going to be very beneficial for Elazer. But I think the main reason why this is going to be very helpful is because he can aggress this natural here from VortiX, and then if he starts getting beaten up, he can still retreat to the health camp to heal up.
Yeah, we've seen this used time and time again over the last couple of days, and it just makes so much sense pushing into that natural, taking a little bit of damage, and then moving back. It's unfortunate because as the Infernal, you do lose that white health when you are off your Shroud, but it obviously gets made up for in the fact that you've got that health coming through. Looks like a little scout sent out there from VortiX does get shut down, but the numbers are building here for Elazer. Might be looking to take his 3rd base, just judging by his position, but he is also moving up towards this health regen creep camp once again.
Elazer is playing a very different game from what we've seen from him in the early days of this tournament. In these early days, he has been one of the more defensive players, loving to build those Shroud Stones. He's actually willing to contest the map a lot more now, and in fact, he's the one with more map control, but as I'm saying that, a bit of an aggression coming towards his natural has to pull the imps away, as a Doombringer is about to land inside his base.
It's that time of the game already. The Doombringer drops are well and truly online. Whole bunch of Gaunts in there. It looks like might be a couple of Brutes as well joining the party, but solid defense so far coming out from Elazer. VortiX is looming, looking for a way through. It's just back and forth, isn't it?
Yeah, I love how Elazer is shadowing the movement of this Doombringer with his own. It's like, yeah, you go drop your troops inside my base, and I'm just going to drop mine right next to you. Oh, he's sending his own Doombringer over, though.
Yeah, look at this. Okay, it looks like we've got ourselves... This is where it starts to get a little bit spicy because you've got attention on 2 parts of the map that you've now got to start making. But naturally, he looks to try and throw down the Shroud Stone. It might be denied here. Plenty of damage coming out in the natural. Also looking for drops on that other side. VortiX trying his luck. Doesn't look like he's found too much, though. Now Elazer moving down along the west side of the map. He's lost a little bit of white health here, but still got plenty of it on this Doombringer.
Yeah, both players dancing around with their Doombringers, trying to find an opening, but we've seen this build so frequently recently that players have adapted to all of this aggression coming out of the Doombringers, and you see both of the players are struggling to even land with these.
Yeah, it's quite funny the way that they're shadowing each other so quickly, but this isn't looking too bad here from Elazer. Does get a nice little drop, manages to keep quite a few of those Gaunts alive, and continues to move on. Decent little freedom that they've got through the base as well. Eating through those trees means that VortiX has got pretty decent coverage, able to run between his 2nd and 3rd base. But now VortiX towards the middle of the map is going to start taking resource camps. And I think the question is, where do we go from here? Because Elazer's now taking his 3rd base. How soon are we going to see these 4th bases come up? Because normally once the 3rd gets taken, the 4th is pretty quickly coming afterwards.
I would say very soonish, as both players are now working towards those tier 2 camps, but I think one of the more intriguing things over here, as Elazer needs to be careful not to lose the Doombringer to those very angry looking animals here, especially the ones that shoot rockets from the top of their heads.
I'll be honest, I never realized they actually had rocket launchers on their heads. That's the first time I've actually seen that, but I guess I've never really done a Doombringer drop on a creep camp before. But speaking of Doombringer drops, have a look at this one and look how low the health is. Well, that was Elazer's, but now that drop on the backside once again. Going to be coming through. Gaunt's going to be applying that infest over towards the imps. Gets a couple of fiends. The Fell Hog's also jumping in, and straight after that Doombringer, he's wanting it. Looking to cut off that exit, but not going to be happening. And VortiX, once again, getting out before any real damage is taken.
Yeah, it's a poke and prod game right now, Aussie. Both of them trying to get some sort of an establishment inside the enemy base. But really, that's just a sideshow. They're building up, they're expanding their economies. And at this point, they're just trying to use this as a diversion or as a tool to build some sort of a tiny advantage. But both of the players so far, exceptional when it comes to shutting down these Doombringer landings.
Yeah, I think this plays into Elazer 100% because, as we've talked about earlier, always got to be careful. That's so low. Oh, he manages to scrape by on just by the skin of his teeth. But I think this definitely plays into Elazer. As we mentioned earlier on, the longer these games go on, the better it gets for Elazer. He looked really comfortable yesterday when the late game was happening. He definitely felt confident. And now that he's made it through the hard part, which is VortiX well-rehearsed opening, the question is, how does he look to finish this game? So to me, at this stage, in game number 1, I would be surprised to see VortiX take it out in a macro game, but I'm confident he's going to be looking to try his best here as these forces move towards the center of the map.
Doombringer spots these forces. This is an empty Doombringer, but it's a great one to scout with. So now VortiX knows exactly what he's up against, but he is getting flanked here by a Magmadon.
Yeah, Magmadons are out. Doesn't look like the stun is through just yet, at least for Elazer. VortiX does pick up that Demon Hoof upgrade, though. Looking to get that stun in, and now plenty of Gaunts on the back line. Going to be forced to run away, as there is just chaos absolutely everywhere, Lidakor.
Yeah, force is split on both sides here, but it looks like the Magmadon numbers are looking better for VortiX, and they are tanking up a lot of damage. He is the one pushing forward, and he does have the stun as well on the Magmadons, pushing his opponent back into his third base here. Momentum starting to build on the side of VortiX here.
Yeah, to keep in mind, Elazer, he loves those Shroud Stones, so don't be surprised if we see a whole bunch pop up in his bases, just looking to defend against these Magmadons. Of course, Magmadon's a very heavily armored unit with lots of health, difficult to deal with just Gaunt, so often need a little bit of backup here, but the numbers continue to build for VortiX, trying for a little flank around the backside. I don't know if this flank was intentional or not, but it definitely feels like this poor little guy is, he was going the wrong way. Ooh, nice little use of the the buff up there on the Iron Vault, just to get that single Magmadon out, but wasn't going to be found, unfortunately, for Elazer. So could now be looking to go run some drops with Magmadons. They can be incredibly difficult to deal with as both flanking units as well as raiding units. If you're not paying attention and a Magmadon manages to drop into your worker line, things are not going to be pretty for you.
Oh, certainly, as it looks like this Doombringer has something inside. You can actually see that gray bar fall, and indeed it's only 2 Magmadons. Perfect timing, though, to intercept this expansion here from VortiX, shutting down that new shrine being built.
Yeah, shuts it down. Fortunately, VortiX does the right thing, cancels it, and looks to put it back down, making sure he gets a refund and doesn't lose the imp. That's the most important part, because then he'd have to run out a new one or cancel a Shroud Stone nearby. But have a look at this Elazer once again, looming around the backside. He's looking to try and find a raid, and here it comes. We've got ourselves some big stomps about to happen. Throws down the Manifestation Shroud Stone, and there we can see the Doombringer does go down, leaving the unfortunate death of these 2 bad boys. Look at them go. They tried their best. It looks like they got a couple of workers in there, though, that's for sure.
A couple is an understatement. They got quite a few of them with that combination of the stun and the trample. In the end, I think VortiX is still fine, but this was a really good landing here for Elazer, and you kind of touched on this a couple of minutes ago. Late game is Elazer territory, and we're getting closer and closer to that.
Yeah, it feels like every second that we sort of get closer to it, it starts to look better for Elazer. VortiX, it feels like less activities happening on his or on his opponent's side of the map. We're not seeing any real attempts at drops. Elazer's just demonstrated some beautiful techniques there with the big stunts. Now looking to come through, pushing up the Magmadons once again. On the back line, there's not a whole lot of units. You can see VortiX starting to struggle as he's trying to push past this Iron Vault. All of his units are on the backside. Meanwhile, towards Elazer, there's plenty of units there, just throwing in that concave.
Yeah, but a lot more Magmadons on the side of VortiX over here. He's got a lot of tanky units, and Elazer seems to be running out of the meat shield in front of those Gaunts.
But have a look at this in the second base of Elazer. VortiX with a massive drop, taking out...
Oh my lord!
Yeah, we gotta check back in on that, because that was incredible. That's a game-winning move right here. VortiX not only able to take out all of the imps in that natural expansion, but will be looking to take out the greater or the shrine as well. And with that,
he's got a dragon. That has to be the game, Aussie.
Jeez Louise, we've gone from being confident that Elazer was looking good to very quickly calling the G's, and that's going to be it. Game number 1 going to be going over to VortiX in this best of 7 series. I tell you what, Lidakor, that was absolutely incredible. How quickly that swung in his favor. Just the combination of the drop together there with the dragon.
Oh, what a game, and really starting off this series with a fairly long game here, just sub 14 minutes here. And a back and forth game as well. I think this is probably the most important for either of these players. This wasn't a stomp either way, which is something that can still lift the morale of Elazer despite losing game number 1.
Yeah, I think so. The fact that he managed to make it through the early game is definitely a good sign. But at the same time, I'd be a little bit worried, though, because, you know, when you're coming into this series, that's what you're thinking. You're thinking, all right, late game is my domain. This is where I win. And now, you know, you've gotten through to, what was it, a 12, 13, maybe 14-minute game. And somehow, VortiX has managed to bring out that dragon before you could get a lot of damage in with it. And I think the big thing, the game-winning move in my mind was taking out the natural expansion. That was just... It was clinical coming through from VortiX. The fact that he did that right as the fight was beginning, managed to take out all the imps, take out the shrine, And that's pretty much it right there. There's so much income that's lost from that.
Yeah, I feel like patience was a key part of this here for VortiX. For a long time, he didn't really aggress his opponent. He was waiting for those drops from Elazer, and the Elazer, he was able to get quite some value for those Magmadon drops. But right after that, VortiX waited patiently, and as you said, as he took a fight to the south of the enemy base, he hits the natural and just takes it out. Converts all of the enemy imps into fiends, and that is just a snowball from there. But we're heading into game number 2 here. Jagged Maw is going to be the map choice here for Elazer. Known to be a very good map for the Infernals, but guess what? We have 2 Infernal players over here.
Yeah, so it means, how is this going to play out exactly? One of the one of the key things that we're going to be looking out for here is going to be those Doombringer drops around the back. Obviously, the elephant in the room is the siege camp, right? Being able to take the siege camp is going to be a key factor here. And I think what we'll be mainly looking for is whether one player in particular is going to be able to stack up those 2 siege camps together and then look to get an attack.
So, Jagged Maw coming up here. As a reminder, folks, when you look at these games, you always have the loser of the previous game picking the subsequent map. But as we get closer to the end of the series, if we have a map that has not been played, that is going to be the one used as the decider map. 1-0 right now for VortiX ahead of Elazer. I think this is where we have to touch on Elazer, though, because as much as he came in from the Katowice qualifiers, he was actually one of the best players on the ladder here. He actually was, for quite some time, in competition with Kivian for the 4th and final spot when it comes to the ladder qualification spots.
Yeah, so it's going to be a bit of a tough one for him. I think with Kiwian obviously being the last Vanguard alive, I will say right now, Lidakor, I'm incredibly excited about the next series as well. The fact that we do get to see the last Vanguard player fight on. But I'll move forward to Jagged Maw. With regard to Jagged Maw, though, I think the big question for me is just with regard to those siege camps, and not necessarily how you utilize them, but how you defend against them and then how you recover. So we've talked before about the Doombringer drops and looking to get those gaunts in on the backside. I think another key factor that we're going to be looking at is going to be the Magmadon timing as well. But it looks like now game number 2, we're about to jump in, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to game number 2. We've got VortiX versus Elazer spawning in on that south side in the blue, playing as the Infernals. It's going to be Elazer for us.
And right off the get-go, he is going to drop a Conclave and an Iron Ward. He's trying to get that siege camp for himself. A slightly different approach taken here by VortiX, just having that Iron Ward to the front of his base, not so close to that siege camp.
Yeah, this is an interesting position. If we could just go take a look at it, it looks like he's beginning to... Is there the makings of a wall that I'm starting to see there in that second, or that expansion? But have a look at this. Yeah, for Elazer, he's quite far ahead with that one, isn't he? So we've got... yeah, a bit of a defensive position on that north side there from VortiX. Not normally something you'd expect coming out from VortiX. Now with the imps moving out, Shroudstone will be imminently placed down, and we've got the Conclave, which is not too far away as well, going to be looking to pump out these gaunts. There they are, first one out now for VortiX, making its way across the map.
You know, one of the big things on this map, Jagged Maw, is that the distance to cover between the 2 players is fairly long until you chop through that rock line in the middle. So it's going to be interesting to see which of these 2 players will initiate that, but it looks like we have a race towards that speed camp. It's VortiX aggroing the Guardians. Could help a lot for Elazer taking out these Gaunts.
Yeah, definitely going to be the case. VortiX managing to get off that early attack. Looks like the split's going to come through from Elazer. The 2 against 3. But keep in mind, the Shroudstone is slowly but steadily coming up for Elazer on this bottom side. Once it comes up, it's going to mean almost guaranteed control now for him here. I suspect he's probably going to be hesitant about taking the camp, though, just primarily because he wants to get that infest off. And, well, as you know, if you don't have any gaunts, you're not going to be able to get that infest off. So naturally, he is going to avoid taking it, at least for the moment. But VortiX on the way, a couple more units, and it looks like he does have the gaunt towards the top side, leashing along these goats and trying to pull them away from that static defense.
Yeah, Elazer is looking to snipe that Gaunt and just completely nullify that infestation, and now he's going for it. Beautiful surround, gets the Gaunt, so he's going to remove that infest from the Guardians.
Yeah, that was beautifully timed right there. I think the infest is still technically on.
Yep.
We do see that he's going to be able to pop, is it 3? Yeah, he's picked up 3 there. Not too bad. 3 Fiends coming in early for him. So just the consequence of picking off his opponent's Gaunt as it was on the way through there meant that he was able to secure that. Now the Vision Camp going to be taken very, very quickly, looking to pick up a couple of extra resources. The Vision Camp together with that Fiend. And now meanwhile on the backside, the numbers for VortiX starting to fall a little bit. He's got plenty of Fiends out, but not really anything else. And that's exactly what you'd expect from a guy who's taken his natural expansion.
Yeah, he's going to have a second base out there, unlike Elazer, but VortiX was definitely more successful securing camps over here, but he also had to sacrifice a lot for that. Second base coming in for him. He's got no presence near that siege camp, unlike Elazer. So I think we're getting to that stage, especially with just one base for Elazer, where Elazer is going to start working his way towards the siege camp, as VortiX is the first one to dispatch an imp to chop through the middle.
Yeah, I think one of the big things about this map, at least for me, the first time I played it, not even the first time, but like maybe the 20th time I played it, I didn't realize you could actually chop through the middle. It wasn't until EGCTV's tournament that I realized, hold on a minute, you can actually chop through the middle because you see these spires and they look like they're actually part of the map. But yeah, very quickly, and have a look at this, both players with the exact same idea towards the center of the map.
Yep, chop through is complete, so now it is going to be a race towards these siege camps here. Heavily defended, but you do have a Shroud Stone here available for Elazer, making this a much more fortified position. Nice snipe from VortiX, though, taking out the second one.
Yeah, numbers are looking really good here for VortiX. Keep in mind the DPS on these Fiends, while they are small, the DPS is incredibly high, but have a look at that. Elazer manages to get by the skin of his teeth as that single Shroud Stone stays alive, and now the pick up happens. Plenty of units now making their way across the map. The split comes through from the Brute, looking to try and take down the Gaunt. Should be able to find it. It is infested. He's going to pick up another Fiend on top of that. Now the numbers are looking good for Elazer on that south side, but keep in mind, he does not have the second base up just yet. He is on one base.
Yeah, he needs to find damage over here, but he's ready to take out the siege camp. And once he has it, you have to feel that he needs to push VortiX over here. Once again, the Guardians just firing rockets from the tops of their heads, and VortiX looking to intercept this once again, but with this Shroud Stone being around, it is just so difficult for him to do anything here.
Yeah, fortunately he's got the assistance from the chickens. The Shroud Stone a little bit preoccupied with it. Shroud Stone will actually go down. Some of the creeps there able to snipe it out, but the number's still too strong for Elazer, and he'll be off to a decent start at this 5th minute with the siege camp. The big thing for me, though, is going to be that timing on the Doombringers. Have either of these players look to have gone to the Greater Spire just yet? Are we able to take a quick sneaky peek in the base and see what we've got? So Greater Spire has come through from VortiX, so we could potentially see that Doombringer out from him, though we do only see the one Conclave, and then no, as you would expect, there's not really going to be a Greater Shrine coming through just yet for Elazer. He's got other things on his mind at this stage of the game. A little bit of a catapult.
Yeah, this is a good position for Elazer. Needs to find value here for him being just one base, but numbers are looking good. He's got that catapult as well. He's starting to beat up some of these valuable production buildings, but he's lacking white health compared to VortiX.
VortiX now pushing down, looking to try and make a connection with that catapult. The single Brute working it down slowly, but the catapult in response is just going to annihilate that backline. The Elazer now beginning to push through on the front. Manifestation of the Shroud Stone comes down slowly but steadily, and good game gets called. VortiX tapping out after a quick 6-minute game for number 2. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Lidakor, what a game.
And what a different game, Aussie, from what we've usually seen from Elazer. He's known for playing very defensive, knows to play a lot with static defenses, but this was a one base, 4 commit with the siege camp as well. And when you look back at this game, it's fundamentally different from what we've seen from Elazer in so many of the previous rounds. Works out perfectly against VortiX, and now we're looking at an even series here.
I felt like the names were switched up then. You know, you had VortiX that was looking to play the defensive macro game, and he was probably a little bit unsure exactly where was all of this catapult coming from, because Elazer had definitely taken the aggressive route there. So exciting to see from Elazer, and great to see a little bit of range coming out from him. The fact that he's not just that late game macro player, that he is in fact a little bit of an early aggressive player as well. So Game 2, a quick one. We move on to game number 3. Now, keep in mind, we're not going to be able to play Jagged Maw again, Lidakor. They're going to have to switch it out to a different map. The question is, which map do you go for? So, it looks like it's going to be Secluded Grove.
Indeed, Secluded Grove coming in here. First appearance in this series. Once again, Infernals for both of the players, as we'll be heading into the game in just a few seconds. Aussie. So far, neck and neck series over here. Of course, the winner of this series will play either Parting or Kivian later on today in the grand finals.
It's going to be an important one for both of these guys so early on in Stormgate's legacy. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 3 of your first semi-final for EGCTV's Stormgate Open. We begin with an Infernal Mirror spawning in on the south side of the map in the color blue, playing as the Infernals. It's Elazer.
And on the other side, now with an even scoreline compared to his counterpart, VortiX coming in with the red color. So far, a mixed bag for him, to be honest. We had a long game, and that was a fairly convincing win from VortiX, but then a somewhat one-sided game in the favor of Elazer on Jagged Maw. Now we are neck and neck heading into Secluded Grove over here. So far, pretty much identical starts over here. Production buildings coming up. I saw Conclave from Elazer. I assume we're going to have the same from VortiX as well, although there is an Iron Vault as well, but there is the Conclave. Just looking to get those Guardians from the speed camp.
I think it's so incredibly important that Elazer won that last game. One of the key factors in these late game or late tournament series is tempo. So if you're able to get out 2 really quick wins, that can really change your mindset. It can also change the mindset of the opponent significantly. So the fact that Elazer was able to get a leg up here, incredible stuff for him. And I'm excited about the prospects of this series going the full length. But we'll focus on the game at hand right now as slowly and steadily the speed camp is being taken. But have a look at the timing here from VortiX, looking to focus down the gaunt on his opponent's side. Meanwhile, he's got his own gaunt, just doing a little bit of micro on that backside, slowly and steadily. Have a look at the numbers here, though. VortiX actually trying to snipe away a couple of the goats. I'm not sure who managed to get what, but in the end, it's going to be Elazer with 3 fiends in his back pocket. And VortiX,
oh no!
What's going on over here, buddy?
Yeah, I guess he was just microing his fiends on the other side too much and he lost his own gaunt. But yeah, this was the big difference between the 2 players. VortiX, he split his first brood, headed into the enemy camp, tried to snipe it away from his opponent, and he just used a single gaunt on his own. Whereas Elazer, he committed everything he had on his own camp. Now he's heading towards the second speed camp over here. Has a bit of a head start compared to his counterpart when it comes to collecting camps.
Yeah, I guess that's just naturally what happens when you lose a gaunt to the goats. It's painful to see, especially because it's one of those things where as long as your micro is perfect, you shouldn't even, you shouldn't take any real damage on your gaunt. But to lose the gaunt obviously means he was very preoccupied with what was happening over Elazer's side of the map. And speaking of Elazer's side of the map, it looks like that natural expansion will be coming up shortly here. It looks like VortiX has already thrown down his as well. Of course, when it comes to this map, expansions are one of those things that seem to happen quite a bit more. You've got that safety of the tree line, but it's only a matter of time until the Magmadons start marching their way through.
Yeah, no player spawned an imp to chop through that tree line to get to the resource camp, so those remain unclaimed for the time being. Curious to see if either of these players will start moving out with an imp for those.
Yeah, numbers are starting to look good here for Elazer as well. Feels like he's actually quite a bit ahead with regard to his tempo of the army. Normally there's a path that you do follow, speed camp, into the health camp, followed by the vision camp, and we do, well, you can always mix it up between the vision and the health camp, but definitely feels like Elazer a little bit ahead on that timing, which gives him that ability to get out on the map just a slight bit more, but not going to be looking to really use too much of this army. Denies the scout here as well, so VortiX not going to get too much information about what the plan is this game. The question is now, where are those Doombringers, Lidakor?
Well, they will have to wait a little here as the Fiends are moving in, trying to do some damage. A lot of defenders back home here for VortiX, so no value found by Elazer. At the same time, VortiX was looking to pick up some of those resource camps, and he has done just that. So he's got a head start in that department. Yeah,
numbers here looking pretty decent on this south side. If we could ride on board with Elazer for a little bit, I'd love to take a look and see whether we've got those greater shrines that are coming through just yet. That's going to be a key factor here. It doesn't look like we've got there's the greater shrine just coming through right now for VortiX, and the greater shrine is now through as well for Elazer. So timing here pretty standard, not quite as fast as some of them, but there is the first of the Doombringers. A pretty competitive time though. I tell you what, 4 minutes 30, having a Doombringer out is a very nice timing.
Yeah, a couple of Fiends moving in here for VortiX, not finding a lot of value, but he's got his own Doombringer as well. And it looks like both of the players have 2 Brutes garrisoned alongside a couple of Gaunts. I'm actually curious if those brutes will be split to fiends quickly to try and chase down some of these Felhawks, some of the imps.
Yeah, definitely a possibility. Alternatively, you can look to just use it to tank up the front line. One of the big factors here is going to be the position on these Felhogs. And you can see from a defensive perspective, Elazer's got plenty of them, but they can be used against you, and you've got to be really careful with exactly how you play it. The numbers here are pretty decent for the defense from Elazer, but have a look at this on the top side of the map. It looks like VortiX a little bit unaware. He's going to manifest that Shadow Stone, or rather Shroud Stone, but manages to get out of there. Elazer does. Meanwhile, on the south side, VortiX is trying to keep up, but doesn't look like as much damage was done.
It's difficult to judge who has the edge over here without indicators when it comes to the worker count, but I feel like kind of equal amounts of damage was done on both sides here. One thing to note is that Elazer's Doombringer has been beaten up very badly, so he needs to be very cautious when it comes to the subsequent landings.
Yeah, that's a great point. Managing to manifest that Shroud Stone almost right on top of the Doombringer can be really, really difficult to deal with, because you know how much health you've got, and naturally you're thinking, okay, I've got this much space to play with, but then the Shroud Stone comes out of nowhere, and all of a sudden it is a different ball game. But a little bit of a chase is going to be looming here. Elazer throws down, and it looks like we've got ourselves a good old-fashioned country showdown. Have a look at this. Gaunt numbers are pretty damn decent, though, for VortiX. I think he's going to be able to... Ooh, it's pretty close, but yeah, the numbers are managed to go in favor of VortiX. He keeps alive both his Doombringer as well as all those Gaunts inside.
Yeah, that's a big one, because his opponent lost his own Doombringer, so now VortiX is looking to just drop into the enemy base, while his opponent is a little slow to move across the map here with all these brutes.
Yeah, all right. Well, expansion's now starting to come up. Looks like third base for VortiX, as well as Elazer, is now taken. Keep in mind that there's also the option to throw down the shrine on top of that thorium expansion that is just outside the second base. It looks like for VortiX, he has gone about doing that, whereas Elazer has not looked to have taken that. So I think technically you could say that we've got VortiX here on 4 bases almost. I don't know if that, how would you describe it, Lidakor?
Yeah, this is a big difference maker. On this map, Secluded Grove, you have to break those Therium veins to have these extra deposits spawn for you. And that's something that VortiX has done, unlike his opponent. So when you look at Elazer's side of the map, he's got 1 Therium deposit to work with right now. It's not catastrophic at this point in the game, but the fact that VortiX has access to a lot more Therium could be extremely beneficial to him in the next 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, it's this part of the match that Therium becomes incredibly important, because the main thing you're going to be looking for are those Magmadons. So if you can manage to get out more Magmadons than your opponent, it means you're going to be able to push their army back. And Magmadons are incredibly difficult to deal with once you're already in your base. If you're out in the middle of the map, then it makes it a different story. But once those Magmadons are actually able to get into the worker lines, it's very difficult to stop them from slaughtering everything. So we'll have to see exactly how Elazer looks to play it, considering the difference in Therium that he will have.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that Elazer is not breaking any of these Therium veins. He definitely has the time to do so, but looks like he's content with what he has right now. Doombringer once again coming in from Elazer, gets intercepted by VortiX, and VortiX himself is looking for a landing once again. Yeah,
VortiX with the army moving down to the south, looking to take the health camp. Might be doing a little bit of a drop into the main base. We'll have to check in with that Doombringer shortly. He's just doing a little bit of rounds. It actually just spotted out the Therium, and the fact that it's still closed. This should be a bit of a, not a red flag for VortiX, but rather a green flag. I think for him, basically, this means you just chill for the moment, look to macro up, and then kill him with your timing and your far superior amount of high cost units. I think that's just naturally what's going to be happening here. So VortiX at this stage of the game looking good. A little bit of a drop inside the main base. Gaunt's going to get a bit of damage off, but they're all pretty low health, and unfortunately it's not going to go the way for Elazer once again. So it looks like
got like 4 fiends from that.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like Elazer's drops have been really that successful this game, Lidakor. He managed to do a little bit of damage on that first drop. I think he took out about 4 fiends, because I did see the Luminite go down from 12 workers down to 8. But yeah, it just feels like his tempo with regard to those attacks is slowly beginning to dwindle.
Yeah, and we've seen this in today's set so far. Players just mirroring each other's movements with their own Doombringers. The moment your enemy lands, you're going to do the same as well. And look at this. This could be a perfect ambush position as the Magmadons just march their way through the forest, completely surprising the forces of Elazer.
Yeah, it's that Demon Hoof Tremor that's just doing so much damn work right there, together with the Trample. And once again, it's just the number advantage that VortiX has got. Look how many more Magmadons he's got over Elazer. And now the reinforcements come through. More Magmadons on the way. And all that Elazer's got left is just a handful of, well, it depends how many fingers you got on your hands, a handful of Gaunts right there.
I mean, at this point, it really is just two normal human hands full. It's just a handful. Oh, I just said that. It's just a handful of Gaunts remaining, really, Aussie. Great ambush here by VortiX.
That was beautifully done right out of the trees. I don't think he had any idea. I think he was just looking to clear a path, and he's like, hello, how you doing? But speaking of hello, how you doing? Once again, through the trees, VortiX looking to interrupt the third base. A little bit of a flank coming through, but unfortunately, it's just going to be a single Gaunt that comes out of the Doombringer. Not normally what you want when you're looking to flank around these parts. Ideally, we would have seen a couple of, a couple of stunny boys would have been nice. But yeah, unfortunately, the Magmadon numbers here for Elazer aren't the best.
Yeah, now look at VortiX. He is expanding towards that middle grove area. Whereas on the other side, Elazer's map control is still somewhat limited as VortiX brings in the Dragon. He had it in the first game, it didn't really come into play, it was too late for him to make an impact. It was just a game that he already won. But this game, this can be the game changer.
Yeah, this is it. Fetid Breath now going to be going down on the back line, looking to get that Infest out and start switching these enemy Gaunts. Look how quickly he does it, turning them all into Fiends. And I feel like it's only going to be a matter of time until either Elazer calls the G's or Elazer gets his own Flame Dragon out. It's got to be one of the two, Litter. Where is that Blue Dragon? Have a look over on that east side. There we go. A little bit of a Doombringer drop. Going to come through. Gaunt's getting eaten alive, unfortunately, and it gets shut down very, very quickly. And GG gets called. There it is, Elazer tapping out, and VortiX taking this series up to 2-1.
I've got a bit of a deja vu to the first game here, Aussie. Pretty much the same game length. And when you look at the game, it played out the exact same way. Elazer, for the second half of the game, he was the more active when it comes to attempting landings, and VortiX just sat back, said, okay, you can come at me, I'm going to collect camps, I'm going to build up my economy. And then, you kind of touched on this in mid-game, we had very little access to Therium for Elazer, whereas for VortiX, he was a lot earlier to Therium, and that showed when it comes to the Magmadon numbers.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It just all really just came down to the Magmadon numbers. There not being enough Magmadon on the field, and then naturally, the more Magmadons out, the more of your army, the more enemy army you're able to take out, and subsequently, the more expansions you can take behind that. But we're going to be bringing in our host for the event. It's going to be KP. KP, how you doing after those 3 games?
Oh, I am absolutely buzzing, boys. What an amazing start to this series we've got. We were expecting to see aggression, but you know what I loved in this? We noticed a pattern with VortiX, right? Like, he definitely hits those all-in timings, Lidakor, but one notable thing that's pretty impressive here is the fact that VortiX wasn't just aggressive in the way he attacked, he was aggressive in the way he expanded. Consistently through that Game 1 and Game 3, always being at least 1 base ahead.
It reminds me a little of Parting's playstyle, to be honest. One of the reasons why his Infernals are so oppressive is because while he's aggressing you with the Doombringer drop, he's extremely rapid when it comes to expanding, and it just makes it so much difficult to handle that second wave because of the big eco differential. And we've seen signs of this from VortiX. It's not truly a Parting style build, but I feel like what he's doing, to a certain extent, mimics the builds that Parting has been using.
And someone else is interesting in these games, Drongo, right? I think especially you saw it in Game 1, you just saw it again in Game 3, these Flayed Dragon timings. And someone that I was kind of knowing that was quite intriguing, and we saw it most clearly from VortiX in that first game. These mirrors are all about Animus exchanges, right? So Game 1, we saw that VortiX was able to force the Shroudstone Manifest. Then he's able to force the Hellspawn Resurgence to get an extra Magmadon out to defend for Elazer. That snowballs into these dragons. It seems like whenever we're watching these Infernal matchups, it's all about that one little shift, that one little use of that extra resource that's making the difference.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It's interesting to see how he's able to get these usages out from his opponent. And I also think it might just be the fact that he is quite patient himself and just saying, he's going to take a step back and thinking, do I really need to manifest my Shroudstone right now? Okay, let's do it just to defend this drop so it doesn't get out of hand. but then we don't really see him using too much else of the anima, and as a result, he's able to get that dragon out before his opponent. And you'd think that they'd be on relatively close numbers, because remember that when a unit dies, as long as there is one of your units close to it, you should be picking up that anima for it. And so naturally, if a unit dies, then it's probably being killed by one of your units, so there should be that crossover. So it's interesting that the timing is that much greater coming out from VortiX, but I guess that's just where his focus is. He knows that a win condition in the late game is going to be that fetid dragon.
I mean, and we've got to talk about what happened to Flay Dragon. Yeah, don't worry, buddy. I called it Fell Dragon on my first cast. I was all over the place. But Lidakor, I want to talk about that pivotal maneuver in game number 3, the backstab through the tree line. That had to be the difference there between the Flay Dragon timing, right? Like game 1, it was all about forcing Animus invested weirdly, but that game, it just seemed like he forced the panic into Elazer that meant he couldn't afford that Flay Dragon to compete.
I think when you look at the Flay Dragon, you also have to consider that VortiX has been very cautious with the Shroudstone manifestation. Every time there was a Doombringer landing, he tried to clean it up with his own forces instead of just dropping a Shroudstone. So in many ways, he was just conserving his Animus, kind of piling it up for the dragon. But I think the reason why that ambush was so remarkable is because those Magmadons do their best when they can get close to you. He was able to close the distance without his opponent even noticing, so he was able to get that stun from the Magmadons basically minute number 1.
Absolutely incredible performance so far. But folks, just a reminder, this is just 3 games into a best of 7. Boys, quick thoughts. Are we thinking that this can go the full distance? Are we getting 7 games here?
Definitely, yeah. It feels like it. It's just the fact that they keep going 1 for 1 in these games. But I think the big part for me is the fact that VortiX in both of the macro games has come out on top. Meanwhile, the one game that actually went quite early, it was Elazer that came out on top. So both of them taking games where you would expect the other to be the victor. What do you reckon, Lidakor?
Yeah, so far, I think one of the big things for Elazer was that his win came on Jagged Maw, and it was off the back of a siege camp. It was the quickest game of all, and I feel like we need to see more of that from him. He found success in these short games, and VortiX was the more dominant player when it comes to these longer games that go beyond the 10-minute mark. So I feel like Elazer needs to maybe change his approach a little and try to play a little bit more aggressive.
And that's tough, right? Because if you think about the way this series opened, we began with Broken Crown. If we do go 7 games total, and Jagged Maw is the one way you can beat VortiX, statistically, you can't have Jagged Maw for the majority of games anymore, right? Maximum, you can have it for free. So might be a tough detail if Elazer can get all the way. But I think we're about ready to get into the next game. Folks, just a reminder before we do, if you do donate at least 10 subs in one drop, you can immortalize yourself in a moment in these semifinals and grand finals. Your name's going to pop up on screen, so I want you guys to keep an eye out for the GG moment. Slap bang that 10 plus gifted, and who knows, when we look back at the history of Stormgate, your name may just be etched into it. But boys, I think it's time to get back to the map draft and back to the series.
All right, let's take a look. Lidakor, what do we got right here? It is going to be Broken Crown. So heading back to map number 1 of game number 1. That's exciting. A little bit of a standard map, especially when it comes to Infernal versus Infernal. But now, Lidakor, it is time for us to dive into game number 4. Oh, I'm excited. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 4. It is an absolute pleasure to have your company here in this series. This is a best of 7 series, spawning down on that south side of the map in the color blue, playing as the Infernals. It's going to be Elazer.
And now, with a 1-point lead, spawning in on the northeast, it's going to be VortiX once again with the Infernals. Broken Crown, this is the second time that these two are playing this map in this series. And the first time, it was VortiX winning it. So far, Elazer was only able to win a game on Jagged Maw. Let's see if it changes here in game number 4.
All right, well, standard little opening right here as we've got the cut through. It's going to be happening. One of the key things to look out for is going to be the early speed camps that get taken. Conclave has gone down inside the base here for Elazer. In fact, it's going to be a double Conclave opening. Have a look at this. A little bit of difference between... Can I just double check? Was that a double Conclave opening that I saw? Indeed it was.
Yep.
There you go. All right. So, and he's going to be looking to actually contest the speed camp over on the east side. So looking to play it up a little bit different. And there's the Iron Vault. Okay. So it's double Conclave and the Iron Vault up against a single Conclave, I can only suspect. Let's double check. Let's have a look inside the base of VortiX.
He wants to take this camp. He's playing a lot more aggressive here, Aussie.
Yeah, this is going to be it. He's going to have the number advantage. Might start out in favor of VortiX because he's got those reinforcements a little bit closer, but the splits are going to come through. Gaunt on Gaunt action. Both of them going to be going down. Third Fiend going to be popping out for both of them. And look at the micros. They bring back the lower health Fiends. But unfortunately, at the end of it, Elazer comes out with quite a bit of damage on his Fiends compared to his opponent. What did it go down to, Lidakor? What was the difference between it?
It's tough to say. Everything happened so quickly, so I would lie if I told you I know what happened exactly. But the key detail here is that Elazer was able to snipe that first Gaunt from his opponent. So he was trying to eliminate this infest effect that now VortiX is using to spawn all these Fiends and start snowballing this game.
All right, well, numbers are starting to look good for VortiX. Look how many Fiends he's got. This is ludicrous. Consider the fact that he's also down on the production facilities against his opponent, just able to utilize these early Fiends as his units. This is all he needs. He's going to be thinking about an expansion behind this. He doesn't even need to pay for his units at this stage of the game.
And we talked about this prior to this game. Elazer might need to play a lot more aggressive, but it's difficult. His weakest period in any game is this sub 5-minute window. That's the strongest period for VortiX. And it looks like momentum is building up here for Elazer here, getting another kill on that Gaunt, and kind of confining his opponent into the base. And I don't think the speed camp actually has been claimed here, so one base build from both of these players, a lot of aggression early on.
Yeah, it looks like the tempo may start to favor Elazer, but just keep in mind as you do get closer to VortiX's base, it's going to mean that those reinforcements come in a little bit faster, and with that, you're going to start seeing things like this happen, where we've now got the number advantage moving over to VortiX, but very quickly, Elazer now bringing through. Geez, the numbers are just so amazing how quickly they turn, isn't it?
Yeah, at this point, no one is using brutes. They automatically split them so that they get Fiends with full white health, and they're just looking to snipe each other's Gaunts. This is exactly the level of craziness we have in this game, Aussie, in many ways. You want to snipe those Gaunts because those are your tools to secure additional Fiends from the Camp Guardians and from the enemy troops.
That's exactly right. And if you could deny those Gaunts from ever really getting their attacks off, then you're going to be denying any additional Fiends from coming out. But have a look at this. Elazer looking to put pressure onto VortiX, trying to get him to force the cancellation. Not going to happen just yet. And have a look at this. A huge amount of Gaunts now coming out. It makes me think he may have looked to have used some of that anima on just getting out. A little bit of a Hellspawn resurgence, I think.
Yeah, this game is just a game of momentum at this point. And indeed, Elazer is going to tap out of this one. Sub 5 minutes. VortiX quick to strike, and he moves on to match point here with a very swift win here on Broken Crown.
Jeez Louise. Okay, that was not something I was expecting to see. The numbers just kind of came out of nowhere. You saw in that defense, it was looking good from the perspective of Elazer, but then all of a sudden, this whole bunch of Gaunts just came out of nowhere, and you can see the power that VortiX throughout this series has really utilized quite well with just the anima. The anima use has just been incredible. He's won 3 games right now with the use of the anima.
It's tricky, right? But because when you look at this game, Elazer played a lot more aggressively compared to the previous games. But you just see how momentum-based Infernal Mirrors can be. It all comes down to you being able to get one of those good fights where you spawn a couple of Fiends for yourself from the enemy army. And that's kind of what snowballed this game out of control here as well. Elazer tried to be a lot more aggressive, but VortiX handles the pressure and now moves on to match point.
Well, it's match point, but Elazer moves to the only map that he's managed to win so far. It's Jagged Moor, so he's going to be hoping for a repeat of that second game in the series. Lidakor, it's exciting. It's match point already. It's pretty early on in this series, so I'm going to be honest with you. I thought... I'm a little bit surprised that VortiX was able to win that one so quickly, but I guess Elazer just respecting the fact that VortiX managed to get that second base down. He wasn't able to deny it, and yeah, now we move on to game number 5.
Yeah, Elazer still looking to hold on for this one, and Aussie, I mean, we know a lot about VortiX. He has been very active in AoE 4. He came into Stormgate, was a top 4 on the ladder. He was also top 8, I do believe, in the first Zero Space tournament. But we haven't really touched on the fact that Elazer did pretty much the same thing as well. He was active in StarCraft. He was actually on the talent roster for IEM Katowice. he goes into zero space. He actually won the first zero space tournament ever, and now he's here in the semifinals of EGC Stormgate Open. But looks like he is going to be the underdog in this series. Needs 3 consecutive wins now to get himself into the grand finals.
It's impressive, isn't it? It's just one of those things where it's just like the natural raw talent. Like I think about it, I went to school with a guy and he just played 11 sports, and it's just, he was at the A grade in every single one of those sports. And it's like, I don't know how you got the time to do it. I don't know how you've got the skill to do it, but it's just that natural raw RTS talent that a lot of these guys have got. The fact that they're able to just move from game to game, a lot of the skills transfer, but I guess at the end of the day, it's just, it's often a skill issue, but not for these guys. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it is time. Welcome to game number 5 of your semi-final series. It's VortiX versus Elazer, spawning in on that north side of the map in the color red, playing as the Infernals. It's Elazer.
And on the other side, now looking at a match point, just 1 win away is VortiX with the color blue, doing the same kind of approach that he had before in the previous instance of these two playing Jagged Maw. It's a front iron vault, but it's not close to the creep camp. Whereas on the other side, Elazer is once again positioning himself so that he can take that siege camp on his side.
Yeah, I suspect Elazer might be looking to emulate that same play that we saw in the second game. We do now start to see that Fiend beginning to move out. He'll be looking to put down the Shroud Stone just outside of the speed camp. We'll wait and see whether he's able to actually get it up. Of course, there's a couple of ways that you can try and deal with it. One of those ways is going to be looking to get your, oh gosh, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Get your Fiends out as quickly as possible. But I think the fact that he hasn't put the Iron Vault inside the base has meant it's probably going to delay those Fiends quite a bit here.
Yeah, it's a balancing act, right? In a mirror matchup like this, especially at the highest level, you want to maximize your efficiency. So dropping that Iron Vault to the front is exactly what you need to be just a couple of seconds quicker to this creep camp on the left side compared to your opponent.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And now, looks like the early infest will come off. Splitting the Brute already. It looks like we're going to have ourselves a good old classic 2 Fiends and a Gaunt go down. It's going to be 3 on 3, but slowly and steadily, the Shroud Stone does come up, and that is going to mean it's only a matter of time until this camp does go in favor of Elazer. Keep in mind, he wants to avoid actually pulling these over. Do we have a Gaunt on the way? It looks like there's a couple of units moving over. I don't think he's going to be able to pick it up. And meanwhile, to the south side, have a look at this. Another 3 Fiends down on this south side. Numbers starting to build here. And early on, you can't really give an advantage to either player. No one's really won a fight overwhelmingly.
Yeah, most of those Treasure Guardians went down without infestation, so there weren't many Fiends that actually spawned from those Guardians, hence the low numbers on both sides. But now Resource Camp has been claimed by VortiX. That's not so much the case for Elazer. VortiX having a bit of an advantage when it comes to the timings here, but the Shroud Stone already being dropped close to that siege camp. Elazer, he loves his own Shroud Stones. He has been using them throughout the previous rounds. We haven't seen that many of them from him today, though.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Typically in the games that we watch him play, there is a huge amount of Shroud Stones. In fact, I remember KP actually mentioning the fact that I think Elazer's had the most on average Shroud Stones per game that he's played, which I guess goes to the credit of his defensive prowess. But he's going to continue adding them in. I wonder if we're going to have a macro game from him here. It looks like at this stage, though, it's going to be a focus on these siege camps. Looking to bypass the front line. Have a look at the number of units VortiX has got out right now. There's going to be a huge amount of production on the backside. Trying his best to keep it all together. Needs to make sure he avoids losing these Fiends and Gaunts. Meanwhile, Brutes towards the front side. No splits coming through just yet. As long as he's able to keep one of the Gaunts alive, he should be okay. But he's got to be really careful right now. VortiX is looking super solid as the units now look to surround. He's going to be able to split the Brutes on the backside. Trying his best to hold on for dear life. Gets a couple of infests off, and it looks like the number advantage will be slightly in favor of Elazer. He lives to see another day, but he is right on the precipice there.
Yeah, VortiX is trying to just prevent his opponent from taking this siege camp. That siege camp was what propelled Elazer to a victory in the previous time when they played this map. So right now, VortiX is just playing for the denial. Both players on one basis only. You really feel like whoever gets a little momentum here when it comes to the army numbers will be the one taking this game.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think that was why it was so important for Elazer to come out on top in that last fight. But speaking of being on top, have a look at this as VortiX begins to move up. A huge amount of Gaunts now pushing up underneath this Shroud Stone. Shroud Stone, of course, incredibly strong. But the DPS of those Fiends underneath it, you've got to be very careful with them. The DPS of Fiends is absolutely ludicrous. I think it works out to be about the same as a single Brute. So by splitting, you actually get about double the DPS. It's slightly more if I remember correctly, but now Gaunts fighting underneath the Shroud Stone continue to DPS off. A couple of Fiends going to be popping out here. Brute numbers. Got to pop them immediately as well. And into the base, it looks like VortiX is going to be running, trying to distract his opponent from that siege camp.
Yeah, I love this from VortiX. I think he understands that he cannot really contest that Shroud Stone anymore. His momentum was shrinking, so he's trying to find ways to distract his opponent. And as I'm saying that, he's trying to just yoink this camp away from his opponent, but he's the one aggroing the Guardians. And he's now kind of trapped in here as the Brutes from Elazer are being split into Fiends here. VortiX trying to survive in the corner, but it looks like he's just gonna get cleaned up.
Yeah, it's starting to look a little bit better for Elazer.
Oh, he got the catapult!
Oh wow, that's absolutely huge. This means that not only does he now have it, but it's going to deny Elazer's timing here. But the number advantage is in favor of Elazer at this stage. Really, really nice swing there from him. That's incredible timing for him to be able to get that.
That is monstrous from VortiX. He got cleaned up, but he yoinked the catapult away from his opponent, and now he's sitting there like, okay, you committed so much into capturing that camp and capturing the catapult, and I just took it. Sure, I lost it 5 seconds later, but now you don't have a catapult. And don't forget, VortiX still has a siege camp that he can claim.
He does, but Elazer also has a siege camp that he can contest. And we've obviously seen no shortage of that this game with VortiX. The number advantage continues to build for Elazer despite taking a second base behind this. So a win condition is beginning to build.
Oh yeah, I still feel like Elazer has been taking better and better fights here, but he needs to be very cautious not to overextend. All of his Gaunts are infested, and he doesn't have a lot of white health to play around with.
Yeah, not only that, but the beautiful concave coming through from VortiX there, able to get wonderful shots off. Meanwhile, it looks like a couple of Elazer's Gaunts not really getting the message to retreat. A little bit too far forward. They're going to get caught out, turned into Fiends, and now all of the Gaunts go down for Elazer, which means VortiX is going to have an absolute opportunity right now to win this game. Siege Camp, all those creeps are sleeping, but it won't be for long as VortiX now looks to wake them up. The Gaunts going to be turning all of these minions here, or these creeps, into Fiends. I don't actually know, what do you call these? Creeps, minions, monsters? What is it, Lidakor?
I like creeps, I gotta say, but Treasure Guardians is also a cool phrase that not a lot of casters use so far, so I guess that's gonna be my
Takes me back to Age of
trademark.
Empires 3-day, the Treasure Guardian. Yes. All right, well, numbers are starting to look really good here for VortiX. How does Elazer hold this? I'm starting to think this might be the game. These numbers are incredibly high right now for VortiX. Keep in mind, he is on one base, funneling all resources into this. And now towards that top side, Elazer tries to find a way through. There's no units on that catapult. It's going to be uncontested, not to mention the fact the Brutes are underneath now. Looks like he's going to have to use that Hellspawn Resurgence to try and get it. And that's going to be it, ladies and gentlemen. VortiX takes the series 4-1 up against Elazer and moves through to the grand finals.
Little details matter, folks. The fact that VortiX was able to steal that catapult from his opponent just completely nuked the plans of Elazer for this set. And with that, VortiX wins this series in a 4-1 fashion. Very, very dominant. Goes to show why he was a top 4 player when it comes to the ranked ladder.
Yeah, that was an incredible performance there from VortiX. And I think there were a couple of factors in this game that led to the defeat of Elazer. Number one is, as you mentioned, it's going to be denying out that siege camp from your opponent, or stealing it from your opponent. Depends on how you want to look at it. And then the second one was the overextension by Elazer with the Gaunts. He was very aggressive coming out of there, and I feel like that was a decision he didn't need to take. He expanded with a second base behind it. Now, of course, he was very aware of the fact his opponent could look to try and take that siege camp, and I think naturally wanted to sort of push in and try and test the waters a little bit, but unfortunately, he just got caught out of position, and very quickly, all of those Gaunts were turned into Fiends, and his opponent was just able to punish him.
Yeah, VortiX just looking as strong as ever, and really, it's gonna be wonderful to see how he's going to match up against either Parting or Kivian going into the grand finals. Of course, this was only the first semifinals. in a very short amount of time, we will be beginning the second semifinals as well. Parting, big fan favorite, absolute monster when it comes to the ladder, when it comes to this tournament, yet to drop a single game in this tourney. He is going to be facing Kivian in the subsequent set.
Whew, and what an interesting set that one's going to be, boys. I mean, great cast there, great games coming out all around. I think something that's quite interesting there is actually we dissected game 1 to 3 already. We talked about this attacker versus defender kind of mentality and the fact that VortiX is always staying ahead. Things completely spun out of whack in game 4, though, right? That play on Broken Crown, we saw Elazer switch up the build. He went for the speed camp contest, which I would say on the older patch when we used to have 5 creeps worked a little bit better. But the crazy thing is the fact that Elazer tried to be the all-in offensive player. But the big question mark in my mind, Drongo, is if he wanted to be the attacker, why did he choose Crown instead of Jagged Maw?
Yeah, a bit of a curious decision, isn't it? But I guess looking to play into the siege camps, obviously, his strength throughout this tournament has been his static defense, getting down the Shroud Stones. And he knew that he'd be able to contest that early speed camp. He knew he'd be able to convert that, or at least hopefully, into a siege camp by taking that extra step of putting down the Shroud Stone. But obviously, it didn't all go to plan. It unfortunately meant that the siege camp was sniped away, and it was a painful loss for him in the end.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing there is the fact that in that final game, Lidakor, he just completely ignored the Shroudstone play that I think for most Infernal players has kind of become meta, right? Like I think the recurring theme we've seen here is VortiX on these openings in the IVI is choosing a more condensed beginning, whereas typically when we watch the mirror matchup, it's all about flooding the map for the creep camps ASAP.